The things they do with what little they use from the manga still make some interesting episodes to the point where you have to wonder, what would the manga have done differently? Well, aside from less of the lighthearted nature and more on story progression and themes, but whenever an anime intrigues your interest into the original source material, then it's doing something right. Even so, I want to know what exactly they do differently with the restaurant, the farm, maybe the artificial meat they give to the predators at one point. Yes, that happened. It's fun watching now, but I want to know, did something like that happen in the manga? And what was different? Again, Hammock had a bigger role in the manga than he does now, so it's kinda disappointing that he only gets 2 episodes in the entire anime. But had he been in more? Guess I'll have to wait until they decide to re-release the series, like with Blackjack. Really, what makes this anime so enjoyable is in its presentation. Now, of course, the animation hasn't aged that well, and being one of the earlier anime to be made, not to mention the weekly schedule this series had to follow, you tend to see a lot of animation flubs and whatnot. But for the time, it still looked pretty good. It was one of the first anime to be in color, so it was another major draw for the time. The music has a nice feel to it, always fitting the mood, and it's the kind you want to have the soundtrack to. One of the most memorable scenes to ever be animated was Eliza's song to Leo during episode 1. Just watch and listen. Even now, it's still beautiful. The way they use the stars to make an inspiring image, and the flock of butterflies leading the way to land. It's a magnificent scene that brings you hope after what was pretty much a tragedy. It's enough to make you cry tears of joy, no matter your age. Everything about this series just has something to admire. If not the history of its animation, then the story or the characters. Now regarding its production. NBC Enterprises made a deal with Mushi Productions to allow some of their animators to study the coloring styles of the Walt Disney Company, in exchange for having some creative control over the series. Or more or less set up for when they begin their English dub of the series, which was released in 1966. At the same time as the theatrical release of Jungle Emperor Leo, though I can't seem to find it anywhere, as well as the second series, Jungle Emperor Onward Leo. In any case, there were 2 English dubs to my knowledge, the first one by NBC, and then one in 1993 under a Canadian company. While the Canadian dub was closer to the original script, it featured a different soundtrack than even the one from Kimba, which was pretty much the same in Japanese. Regardless, since I don't have access to the Canadian dub, I'm going by the original dub since that's the one most people remember. So yeah, obviously names were changed to better fit the American culture. Some characters had pun names, like Coco was now Polly, Tomy was called Bucky, Raya named Kitty, and Kenichi named Roger Ranger. Yeah, you get the idea. Kimba, I'm not quite sure on meaning, but yes, this would lead to that one controversy regarding The Lion King and how they take many elements from it, especially with the name Simba being like Kimba. I'll admit, some design and story aspects are alike, and I wouldn't be too surprised if that was the case. Still, it shouldn't stop you from checking out both, but yeah, next time you might want to be more careful, Disney. Anyway, the English dub follows through with most of what the original series is about, though making their own changes to further tone down any excessive violence or making it more kid-friendly than its Japanese counterpart. In that that regard, it still holds about the same charm as the original, but if you were to compare the two from a quality standpoint, personally, the original would hold a lot better since it doesn't try to cut corners in the story department by excessive editing. On that, let me just say, I've never seen a cast size this small. Everyone plays multiple roles to the point where you can tell, hey, didn't she voice Kitty? Isn't that Astro Boy's voice? I'm not sure how large the Japanese cast was, though from watching it, it seemed more diverse. But really? Only 5 notable actors? Was that all you could afford? By the way, it should be worth noting that the voice of Kimba for this version was Billy Lou Watt, who also voiced Ma Bag from Courage the Cowardly Dog before her death in 2001. As to the extent of the edits, well, aside from altered dialogue, there would be instances where things didn't make sense in continuity, like deleted scenes in order to make time, characters who were meant to be the same from previous episodes but become whole new ones, and then some songs that were supposed to have been changed over end up retaining their original lyrics. Aside from the standard dubbing practices that would last for years, this was one of the few English dubs that would seem tolerable and very likable. Like Astro Boy, its popularity allowed it to be shown in other countries, which further helped spread the existence of anime to the world. So if there's anything I can give NBC Enterprises credit for, is help give us such an iconic character who fans of animation can learn about and enjoy. However, something I don't appreciate is how much you tone down. Like death. When used right, death can bring a lot of impact to a character, especially after situations where you think they'll succeed, but something bad happens to change that. Well, while death is present in the English dub, they will try to avoid it when possible, mostly when it's easy to get around. Like, there's a lioness named Belladonna who worked for Tonga in trying to hunt down Leo. She later gets pushed off a cliff where, after apologizing to Leo, she dies from her fall. In the dub,
you rest now. All right, I will.
By adding certain dialogue to certain scenes, it kind of removes any tension of the situation, especially when they explain it directly to you.
I guess that was a pretty good trick. He certainly fell for it. It just goes to show that it can be handy to have a few piranha fish around sometimes, especially when you want the worm to turn.
Except you have to explain it to me. If you have to explain a joke, there is no joke.
But the worst example of their notorious editing is episode 5, which, no matter how you put it, I consider it to be the worst of the dubbed episodes. To get an idea why, let me go over the original for you. Basically, this episode has Leo telling some of his friends about the time that he, Kenichi, and crew were in Paris prior to the events of episode 2. Aside from going to a museum and learning the human arts, he went to the World Fair and got to see the kind of human technology that may come in the future. Also note the Astro Boy statue. During the story, Bongo, a leopard cub who was strangely called Speedy in the English dub, blames Leo's father for killing his grandfather, but Leo claims he met him, and we see that to be the case. Apparently, he lost to Panja, ended up in a circus, but escaped into the sewers, which explains why he clings to walls like freaking Spider-Man. But here's the point. In the original, Leo supposedly offers him to help get him back to the jungle, and I believe he accepts. But the French police show up and end up killing the leopard. After some brief denial and a fight, Bongo accepts reality before Leo gives him the big important message of the episode, which leads to one of his biggest dreams in life. future where humans and animals can coexist without having to kill each other like the way that was shown, and there wouldn't have to be any fighting involved. Guess how the dub handles it? Well, for starters, they seem to know Kimba's name by this point, even though in the original, Kenichi called him Lion Boy and wouldn't know Leo's name until getting to the jungle. Also, while the original message of humans being bad is kept by the leopard, this dialogue confuses me.
Then we'll go. You get a good rest tonight, and we'll leave tomorrow.
Kimba, I can't. I'm afraid I'm too old. I can't make the trip. But promise me one thing if you get back safely. Bring my grandson to see me.
Now, how the hell would he know he had a grandson? Kimba and Speedy couldn't have been born at the time he was taken away, so there's no way he could know. Now, the police show up, and while it seems the leopard is shot, he reveals he's feigning death, even though they can still hear him and could probably still shoot him before he escaped. But the biggest slap to the face is the sugarcoating they do here.
Maybe it's too much for Speedy to understand all at once. For one thing, he's probably never heard of Paris before. But listen, I've got a plan. Speedy, seeing is believing, isn't it? Well, I'm going to prove to you that your grandfather is still alive in Paris.
Ooh, how you gonna do that, Kimba?
See, I'm going to keep the promise I made by taking Speedy to meet his grandfather. You want to come, Speedy? Listen, everybody, how would you like to come with us?
Hey, it's a good idea.
Right then, we're off for Paris and the World's Fair.
Once upon a time, strange visitors came to the World's Fair in Paris. They were Kimba and his friends.
Oh, shit!
Yeah, that has got to be the most forceful way to get a happy ending I've ever seen. There should have been no way for the grandfather to live, and there's sure as hell no way Kimba and his friends could ever get to Paris without some sort of contrivance. And for what? Just to give Speedy the chance to meet his long-lost grandfather that we never see again, nor reference at all? They took a very inspiring and hopeful message on a peaceful future between man and beast and replaced it with Jungle Emperor's European Vacation. Just why? Well, that covers the English dub. Despite the choices in editing, it's still a pretty good take on the original. As far as that is concerned, it's a classic in old age animation, with a good cast of characters, memorable stories, great humor, and provides a good view on the ever-evolving animation style of the time. Well, that covers that. The next time we talk about Leo, we'll be going into the sequel series. So until then, I'm the Media Hunter. Media's my prey, and reviewing them my way.
やめてください。この白いライオン坊や、僕の友達なんです。
さよ、我々はライオンの身元引受人でな。よっしゃー